Did you know that Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian was actually supposed to be an isekai? Originally, the author of the series wanted to make a series where the main female protagonist would be reincarnated into an isekai world where nobody spoke Japanese. And despite that, she would sometimes still talk to the main male protagonist in Japanese. However, there would be a hidden twist where the male protagonist was also reincarnated, so he would understand all the Japanese she was saying to him. After a lot of thought, the author of the series decided to scrap the idea because of the difficulties of world building, and he instead opted to go for a simpler high school environment. As for the reason behind why he decided to choose Russian as the foreign language spoken, was because he wanted the female lead to look foreign, and he was influenced by the beauty of Russian women, leading to the creation of Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian.
Did you know that an Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? Kuze's friends are seriously worried about him. Both Takashi and Hikaru believe that Kuze would be a good boyfriend for any girl. But there's one issue, and it was during a study session at Kuze's house that they told him about their concern. It happened because Takashi was complaining about how Kuze was friends with a ton of popular girls, and yet he didn't invite any of them to their study group. Then he complained about how he was too nervous to talk to any girls he didn't know. So Kuze and Hikaru had to tell him that if he just took the initiative and talked to a few, he'd definitely have a girlfriend by now. But Takashi used that as an opportunity to change the topic onto Kuze and asked about why he didn't want a girlfriend. Up to this point, both of Kuze's friends knew that he was extremely talented and was just a slacker, and they both believed that he was one of the better looking guys at school. However, when Kuze said he wasn't really interested in looking for a relationship, Takashi brought up a half-joking concern that he had, and it was that Kuze was just like us and that he was only attracted to anime girls.
Why did Meliodas never use assault mode before his fight with Escanor and the 7 deadly sins? When he first recruited Escanor to the sins, he used assault mode to easily defeat him in his The One form, but Meliodas never used it again until he had a rematch with Escanor, even though it would have been useful several times before that. One of those times was when he fought against the 10 Commandments at the Great Fight Festival. Meliodas was getting destroyed for most of the battle until he used his revenge counter move, but that was stopped by Estarossa, and the battle ended in Meliodas losing his life. However, Meliodas could have entered his assault mode form when the situation was dire after Estarossa stopped his revenge counter, and he could have easily taken down all of the commandments in that form. As Melascula said that back when Meliodas led the commandments were scared of him whenever he entered that form due to how powerful he was, so it's safe to say he would have won the battle if he decided to enter that form, but he didn't. One of the reasons Meliodas didn't enter his assault mode earlier than this was because Merlin had stolen and sealed his powers away after what happened in Danafor. But during his fight with the commandments, his power was restored, so the main reason he decided not to enter his assault mode was because entering it meant that he would risk losing his emotions, and no one there would have been able to stop him. Did you know that in Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? Yuki has a secret stash inside of Kuze's house. Even though she lives in the Suo household, she regularly visits Kuze's house, most of the time unannounced or uninvited, and sometimes during her stay, she leaves something for her next visit. Because of the standards the Suo family holds her to, Yuki is never able to publicly be her otaku self at home, and is only able to act that way privately when she's around Kuze or Ayano, or in the Kuze household. However, because she lives with the Suos, she gets a large allowance, but she ends up never having any money because she spends almost all of it on anime merchandise, light novels, and manga whenever she gets the chance to while shopping. And it's even what she went to do while Kuze was helping Alia shop for new clothes. However, the Suos would never allow Yuki to bring any anime-related things home and keep it, so she instead stashes all of her merchandise away at Kuze's house. Did you know that an Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? Kuze saved Alia from getting into a fight? In the manga, after Alia, Kuze, and Yuki had dinner with the student council president, Kuze walked Alia home. On their way home, a drunk businessman walked out of a bar with 2 of his co-workers when he spotted Alia and Kuze. The businessman thought Alia and Kuze were dating, and thought they were rude for being out on a date late at night. Because of this, he decided to throw rude comments at Alia and Kuze, insulting Alia's unique hair color and calling her a brat for ignoring him. Eventually, he decided to insult her parents, calling them and Alia by very rude remarks. Because he insulted her parents, Alia decided to say something back to the businessman, calling him a shameful adult. This caused the businessman to lose his temper and try to fight Alia. However, Kuze would step in and grab the man by his hand, stopping the fight. He would call the man by the name he heard his co-workers say earlier, and Kuze would pretend that he had an older brother and that he met the man at his older brother's wedding, as his brother was a very important business client to the man. Hearing that Kuze's brother was a client of his, the man immediately corrected his act. Kuze proceeded to say that Alia was actually his fiancée, and said that she got her beautiful hair color from her parents. He then asked the businessman if he agreed, and under the influence that Kuze was related to a business client of his, he agreed and apologized for his previous behavior. Did you know how Puck found out that Roswaal modified his contract with Amelia in Re:Zero? During the battle between the two of them in the sanctuary, Puck asks Roswaal about when he put a spell on Amelia, and Roswaal replied that he actually casted the spell on her right after her argument with Subaru in the royal capital, and mentioned that it modified Puck's contract with her so that it would be difficult for him to manifest. However, there was never a time where Roswaal revealed to anyone that he did this. Despite this, Puck started to become suspicious that his contract was being messed with shortly after Roswaal had modified it. And with the convenient timing of the witch's cult attack, Puck began to suspect that they were the culprits behind the modification so that he couldn't intervene with their attack. However, when he realized his ability to manifest still proved to be difficult after the witch's cult defeat, Puck began to suspect that whoever did it was an ally, and he eventually came to the conclusion that it was Roswaal. Did you know that in Re:Zero, Subaru's contract with Beatrice might be holding her back? After Subaru finally managed to convince Beatrice to break her contract with Echidna and instead form a contract with him, Subaru gained a significant power boost. However, the case might not be the same for Beatrice due to two main reasons. The first reason is actually hidden within the conditions of their contract. According to its terms, their contract together makes it so Beatrice is unable to drain mana from anybody other than Subaru. It also makes her unable to use any of the mana in the atmosphere, causing her to be completely reliant on Subaru as her only source of mana. The second reason adds to this, as Subaru is very slow at generating mana, which means Beatrice is unable to restore the majority of the mana that she uses, and she would have to wait a decent amount of time if she wanted to drain a sufficient amount of mana from him. Due to this, the spells that she can cast are limited, and she is unable to use her most powerful spells unless she were to wait a very long time to store up enough mana.
Is Arisu in love with Ayano in Classroom of the Elite? She's been interested in him ever since she saw him in the White Room, but is it love or something even more complex? I think it's kind of a hard question to answer because her whole reason for even challenging Ayano in a special exam was to prove her philosophy that geniuses are born and not made. And if she could beat the White Room's masterpiece, she would effectively prove that. So by default, he was already in a special place because he was the only one that could help her get what she wanted, even if it wasn't out of love. However, Arisu is also a person who enjoys situations she finds interesting, and every interaction she's had with Ayano she's found interesting and thoroughly enjoyed them. So much so that it got to the point that she couldn't sleep the night she was about to face off against him in the special exam. And even during the exam, her heart was racing from being in the same room as him, and she couldn't help but steal glances at him and feel attracted to him. Afterwards, she even called the special exam her best memory because of the time she got to spend with Ayano and how much she was challenged. So there clearly is an attraction to Ayano, most likely made out of the fact that his genius is able to actually challenge her own and make situations interesting for her in a way nobody else's can. On top of the fact that she now acknowledges and even admires his skills, which shows that he clearly has a special place in her heart. Did you know the differences between every sword style in Mushoku Tensei? There's 3 different styles that people can learn, and some people can master all 3, but they're all very different, and they go to show how good the world building in Mushoku Tensei really is. First, there's the Water God style. This style really specializes in defense, with a focus on parrying and counterattacking, and they're also kind of rage baiters. Because of the nature of their style, they focus more on counterattacking, so they have to find ways to provoke their opponent and have them make the first move. Then you have its polar opposite, the Sword God style, and it's the style that both Eris and Ghislaine specialize in. This style follows the belief that victory goes to he who moves first, which also happens to be its motto. It focuses on taking their opponent down in a single strike, so people that only focus on training in this style pretty much have no defense. But this style really suits aggressive people, so I think we can all agree that Eris is basically a perfect fit for it. And finally, the most unique style, the North God style. This style is basically just fighting dirty, as it solely focuses on staying alive and fighting to give yourself the highest chance of winning, resulting in users using tricks or dirty tactics to win instead of actual technique.